Imagine a man being elected President of the United States of America, and then spending the next few months with his incoming staff planning every detail of the inauguration. And then the big day comes. He's sworn in as the president, and then immediately thereafter, shots ring out. There's a sniper, and the president's 2 grown sons are killed. It's not a hypothetical. That's basically what happened to Aaron, Aharon HaKohen, Aharon the high priest. On the day of the inauguration of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, after all the planning, building its utensils, creating the special clothes that he was to wear, he becomes the high priest. He brings the first sacrifices. A fire comes down from heaven and accepts them. He blesses the people. And then immediately thereafter, 2 of his sons, Nadav and Avihu, they bring a strange fire, an unauthorized sacrifice. And the same heavenly fire comes down and incinerates them. Due to the nature of my job as a personal injury attorney, I've been in that room too many times with parents who have lost their children. That room isn't a dark room, it's a black hole. Moses, Aaron's younger brother, offers him some words of consolation, and the Torah then records that Aaron was silent. He didn't complain, he didn't rail against heaven, he didn't question God, he silently accepted God's decree. Now listen to this story. Several months ago, I went to console a friend who was sitting Shiva for his father who had passed away. And as is the custom, we got to talking about his father, and he told me what happened on the day of his father's death. His father was elderly, but still had his faculties, but he was infirm, so he had a home health aide. So they went for a walk around the block, and then they came back, and he walked up the steps to his front porch and sat down to have his usual breakfast, waved and said hello to a few friends, and when he finished his breakfast, he took the last bite, put the utensil down, closed his eyes, and passed away. I blurted out to my friend, wow, that sounds exactly like the death of Aaron. Because later on in the Torah, when Aaron dies, we're told by the commentators that what happened was God directed Moshe to take Aaron to a cave in a mountain where there was a bed set up. And he was told to tell Aaron to lie down on the bed, to stretch out his hands, to close his mouth, to shut his eyes, and then he died through a kiss of death, painless, no suffering at all. So my friend said to me, I have a theory as to why it was that Aharon merited that type of painless death. I think the reason was that since he was silent after the death of his children, since he accepted God's decree without questioning it, when it came time for him to die, God repaid him measure for measure and gave him that silent kiss of death. I couldn't help but wonder to myself, why did my friend's father merit that kiss of death? But I didn't think it was appropriate to ask him that question. But he realized that the question was hanging in the air. So he told me, you may be wondering why my father merited that type of death. He says, I have a theory for that too. A few decades ago, my younger brother was barely a teenager and he was very religious. So he used to go to the synagogue on Shabbat to study before the services. And one fateful day, he went to his class, and on the way, he was struck by a car and killed. He says, and from the moment my father heard the news, through the Shiva, through the decades, throughout the rest of his life, he was silent. He accepted God's decree. He didn't rail against heaven. He never questioned it. And I'm convinced that that's why he merited that silent, pain-free kiss of death. God is up there in heaven, recording all of our actions and repaying us in kind.